Dear friends, welcome to Diary of World War II. Today, we delve into one of the most brutal and harrowing chapters of the Pacific War, seen through the eyes of a young Marine who endured its unimaginable horrors. This is the story of Eugene B. Sledge, a man whose memoir, With the Old Breed at Peleliu and Okinawa, stands as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for both suffering and resilience. It is a raw, unflinching account of what it truly meant to be an American fighting man in the crucible of the Second World War. Eugene Sledge was born in Mobile, Alabama, into a comfortable, educated family. His father was a physician, a man of science and reason, and his mother, a gentle and caring woman. Young Sledge grew up with a love for the outdoors, for hunting and fishing, and for the quiet beauty of the Alabama countryside. He was a thoughtful, sensitive young man, far removed from the brutal realities of combat. Yet, as the war raged across Europe and Asia, a profound sense of duty stirred within him. Like countless young Americans, he felt the call to serve, to defend the ideals he believed in. He was barely 18 when he made the life-altering decision to volunteer for the United States Marine Corps. This was not a choice made lightly, but with a deep conviction that he must contribute to the fight. He would soon discover that the war he envisioned, the war of heroic charges and clear victories, was a far cry from the hell he was about to enter. Sledge's journey began with the unforgiving crucible of Marine Corps basic training. First at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and later at Camp Geiger, he, along with thousands of other young recruits, was systematically stripped of his civilian identity and forged into a fighting machine. The drill instructors were relentless, their voices hoarse from constant screaming, pushing the men to their absolute physical and mental limits. They learned to march for miles under heavy loads, to fire their M1 Garands with deadly accuracy, to navigate treacherous terrain, and to obey orders without question. Every ounce of individuality was hammered out, replaced by a collective identity, a shared purpose. The goal was to create a cohesive unit where every man understood his role and trusted his comrades implicitly. Sledge learned to endure pain, hunger, and exhaustion, to push past what he thought were his boundaries. He was taught that personal survival was secondary to the mission and that the strength of the unit lay in its unity. This rigorous training, though brutal, instilled in him and his fellow Marines a profound sense of camaraderie and an unshakable belief in their own capabilities. They became the Old Breed, a term of respect for the seasoned, battle-hardened Marines who had seen it all. Sledge was assigned to K Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division. The men of K Company became his family, his brothers in arms, a bond forged in sweat, fear, and shared hardship that would prove stronger than any other relationship he had ever known. They were a diverse group, hailing from every corner of America, but united by the green uniform and the eagle, globe, and anchor emblem. They learned to rely on each other for everything, from a spare cigarette to covering fire in a firefight. This mutual dependence would be their greatest asset in the trials to come. In the late summer of 1944, the 1st Marine Division received its orders. Their next objective, Peleliu, a small, obscure island in the Palau chain, deep within the Japanese-held Pacific. The strategic importance of Peleliu lay in its airfield, which, if captured, would provide a crucial base for American air operations and protect General MacArthur's flank as he advanced towards the Philippines. The intelligence reports suggested a swift victory, perhaps a few days of fighting, followed by a relatively easy mop-up operation. The Marines, including Sledge, were told to expect a tough but manageable fight. They were confident, having already proven their mettle in previous campaigns. What they did not know, what the intelligence had gravely underestimated, was the radical shift in Japanese defensive strategy. Instead of engaging in suicidal banzai charges on the beaches, the Japanese had meticulously transformed Peleliu into an impregnable fortress. Under the command of Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, they had constructed a vast, intricate network of interconnected caves, tunnels, pillboxes, and reinforced concrete bunkers, all designed to withstand the heaviest naval bombardments. These defenses were concentrated in the rugged, coral-studded ridges of the Umurbrogel Mountain, a natural stronghold that would become known as Bloody Nose Ridge. Every position was mutually supporting, every approach covered by interlocking fields of fire. The Japanese intended to fight to the last man, inflicting maximum casualties on the invading Americans. They would not surrender, they would not retreat. They would die for the Emperor, and they would take as many Marines with them as possible. The naval bombardment began on September 15, 1944, a prelude to the invasion. From the decks of their transport ships, Sledge and his comrades watched in awe as the mighty guns of the American fleet unleashed a torrent of steel and fire upon the tiny island. Battleships, cruisers, and destroyers pounded Peleliu for days, turning the island into a landscape of smoke, flame, and pulverized earth. The Marines believed that nothing could possibly survive such an onslaught. They were convinced that the Japanese defenders would be annihilated, their defenses shattered. This belief, however, was a cruel illusion. The Japanese, deep within their subterranean fortresses, weathered the storm, emerging largely unscathed, ready to unleash their fury. D-Day for Peleliu dawned on September 15, 1944. The landing craft churned towards the beaches, carrying Sledge and the Men of K Company into the maw of hell. As the ramps dropped, they plunged into the shallow, coral-strewn water. The first sensation was the heat, an oppressive, suffocating blanket of tropical air, already soaring past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, promising a day of unimaginable torment. The coral beneath their feet was not soft sand, but razor-sharp, jagged rock that tore at their boots and flesh, making every step a painful struggle. Then came the sound, a deafening symphony of machine gun fire, mortar explosions, and artillery shells ripping through the air. The water around them erupted in geysers as bullets found their marks. Men screamed, some in pain, others in terror, as they fell, their bodies collapsing into the crimson-stained surf. Sledge remembered the sheer chaos, the overwhelming sensory assault that threatened to paralyze him. He pushed forward, driven by instinct and the desperate need to find cover. The beach itself was a nightmare landscape, burning landing craft, shattered equipment, and the grotesque forms of fallen Marines, their lives extinguished before they could even reach the shore. The air was thick with the acrid smell of cordite, burning fuel, and something far more sinister, the cloying, metallic stench of fresh blood and death. It was a smell that would cling to him, a constant companion throughout the next 82 days. The initial objective was to secure the beaches and push inland, but the Japanese resistance was far fiercer than anticipated. Every inch of ground was contested. The Marines found themselves fighting against an enemy that seemed to materialize from the very rocks themselves. The Japanese had perfected the art of camouflage, their positions so well hidden that they were often invisible until they opened fire. The advance was agonizingly slow, measured in yards, not miles. Sledge and his company were immediately plunged into a maelstrom of close-quarters combat. They learned quickly that the enemy would not break, would not flee. They would fight to the death, often emerging from hidden caves to launch desperate, fanatical counterattacks. The heat was a constant, debilitating enemy. Temperatures routinely soared to 105, 110, even 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun beat down mercilessly, baking the coral and turning the air into a suffocating oven. Water became the most precious commodity, often rationed to a few sips a day. Men collapsed from heat stroke and dehydration, their bodies unable to cope with the extreme conditions. Sledge described the agony of thirst, the cracked lips, the parched throat, the desperate longing for a single cool drink. Some men, driven to desperation, drank brackish water from shell holes, risking dysentery and other diseases. The physical toll was immense, but the psychological toll was even greater. The terrain of Peleliu was a cruel, unforgiving adversary. The island was dominated by the Umur, a series of jagged volcanic coral ridges, riddled with caves and crevices. It was a natural fortress, and the Japanese had exploited every feature to their advantage. Every ridge, every valley, every cave mouth was a potential killing zone. The Marines had to claw their way up steep, slippery slopes, often under a hail of machine gun fire and grenades. The coral itself was a weapon, sharp as glass, tearing at uniforms, boots, and skin. A simple fall could result in deep, festering wounds that quickly became infected in the tropical humidity. The fighting devolved into a brutal, attritional struggle, a cave-by-cave, pillbox-by-pillbox battle of annihilation. Flamethrowers became indispensable tools, used to incinerate Japanese defenders holed up in their subterranean labyrinths. Hand grenades were tossed into cave entrances, followed by satchel charges designed to collapse the tunnels, but even then, the Japanese would often emerge from another hidden exit, launching a surprise attack. The fighting was relentless, day and night. There was no true respite. Even when the sun set, the Japanese would launch nocturnal raids, infiltrating American lines, attempting to sow chaos and fear. The nights were filled with the terrifying sounds of unseen enemies, the sudden bursts of gunfire, and the chilling screams of men caught in the darkness. Sleep was a luxury rarely afforded, and when it came, it was often disturbed by nightmares or the constant threat of attack. The psychological toll on the Marines was profound and devastating. Sledge witnessed men, hardened veterans and fresh recruits alike, slowly unravel under the relentless pressure. The constant fear of death, the unending noise of battle, the grotesque sights and smells, all combined to chip away at their sanity. He saw men crack completely, their minds unable to process the horrors they were enduring. Some would stare blankly into space, unresponsive to commands. Others would break down in tears or simply begin to babble incoherently. The line between sanity and madness blurred. Sledge himself felt the insidious creep of dehumanization. To survive, he had to suppress his empathy, to view the enemy not as human beings, but as obstacles to be eliminated. This was a necessary adaptation, a survival mechanism, but it came at a terrible cost to his soul. He described the grim practice of collecting souvenirs from dead Japanese soldiers, particularly gold teeth. While he never participated in this himself, he observed it, understanding the desperate need of some men to find some tangible proof of their survival, some small trophy from the abyss. It was a stark illustration of how war could strip away one's humanity, reducing men to primal instincts. The stench of death was omnipresent, a thick, nauseating cloud that permeated everything. The tropical heat accelerated decomposition, and the bodies of fallen Marines and Japanese soldiers lay unburied for days, sometimes weeks, attracting swarms of flies and maggots. The smell was so overwhelming that men would vomit even when they had nothing left in their stomachs. It was a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the omnipresence of death. Amidst this hell, the bond of camaraderie among the Marines became their lifeline. They fought for each other, protected each other, and mourned for each other. Sledge's descriptions of his fellow Marines are filled with a deep affection and respect. He spoke of men like Akak and Bergi, individuals whose courage and resilience inspired him. They shared their meager rations, their last drops of water, and their darkest fears. This shared experience of unimaginable suffering forged an unbreakable bond, a brotherhood that transcended words. The loss of a comrade was a deeply personal blow, a wound that never truly healed. Sledge recounted the death of Captain Andrew Haldane, their beloved company commander. Haldane was a natural leader, respected and admired by every man in K Company. His death, caused by a Japanese sniper, was a devastating blow, a moment of profound grief and despair that shook the company to its core. It was a stark reminder that no one was safe, that even the most capable and respected leaders could be taken in an instant. The constant threat of death, the sight of friends falling, created a profound sense of fatalism. Every day was a gamble, every step a risk. Sledge learned to live in the present moment, to focus only on the immediate task at hand, for thinking too far ahead was an invitation to despair. The battle for Peleliu dragged on, far beyond the predicted few days. It became an 82-day nightmare, a grinding war of attrition that tested the limits of human endurance. The Marines continued their agonizing advance, slowly but surely rooting out the Japanese defenders from their fortified positions. Each cave cleared, each ridge taken, came at an immense cost in blood and lives. The physical degradation was extreme. Men were covered in filth, their uniforms torn and stained with mud, blood, and sweat. They were plagued by dysentery, malaria, and skin infections. Their bodies were emaciated from lack of proper food and constant exertion. Their faces were gaunt, their eyes hollow, reflecting the horrors they had witnessed. The 1,000-yard stare became a common sight, a vacant, distant look that spoke volumes about the trauma etched into their souls. Sledge described the constant state of hyper-alertness, the inability to relax, even for a moment. The sound of a distant shell, the rustle of leaves, could trigger an immediate, visceral reaction. Their nervous systems were frayed, their minds perpetually on edge. The line between friend and foe often blurred in the chaos of battle. Sledge recounted instances of friendly fire, tragic accidents born of confusion, fear, and the overwhelming desire to survive. These incidents added another layer of psychological burden, the knowledge that even their own side could inadvertently cause harm. The sheer scale of the suffering was almost incomprehensible. The island, once a tropical paradise, had been transformed into a charnel house, a monument to human brutality. By the time the Battle for Peleliu officially ended in late November 1944, the 1st Marine Division had suffered catastrophic casualties. Over 200 Marines were killed and more than 5,000 wounded. The Japanese garrison, numbering over 10,000 men, was virtually annihilated, with only a few hundred taken prisoner. The cost of securing that small, strategically questionable island was immense. For Eugene Sledge and the surviving Marines, the end of the fighting on Peleliu did not bring peace. The physical wounds would eventually heal, but the psychological scars would remain for a lifetime. They were sent to Pavuvu, a miserable, rain-soaked island, for rest and recuperation, but the memories of Peleliu haunted their waking hours and invaded their dreams. The transition back to civilian life would prove to be another battle entirely. Sledge, like many veterans, struggled to articulate the horrors he had witnessed to those who had not been there. How could he explain the stench of death, the constant fear, the dehumanization, the profound bond forged in the crucible of combat to people who had only known peace? He carried the weight of Peleliu with him, a silent burden that shaped his perspective on life, on humanity, and on the true nature of war. After Peleliu, Sledge and the 1st Marine Division were sent to Okinawa, where they would face another equally brutal campaign. But Peleliu remained the defining experience, the place where he truly understood the depths of human depravity and the heights of human courage. His memoir, With the Old Breed, is not just a historical account. It is a deeply personal testament to the men he fought alongside, to their sacrifices, and to the enduring impact of war on the human soul. It is a story that reminds us of the immense price of freedom and the profound debt we owe to those who paid it. Eugene Sledge eventually returned home, earned a degree, and became a professor, dedicating his life to studying and teaching about the natural world. But the memories of Peleliu never left him. He wrote his memoir decades after the war, driven by a desire to honor his fallen comrades and to ensure that their experiences were never forgotten. His words serve as a powerful warning, a stark reminder of the true face of combat, stripped of all glory and romanticism. It is a story of ordinary men, thrust into extraordinary circumstances, who found within themselves the strength to endure the unimaginable. The legacy of Peleliu and of Eugene Sledge's account is a profound one. It forces us to confront the brutal realities of war, to understand that behind every statistic, every battle name, are countless individual stories of suffering, courage, and loss. It teaches us that the true cost of conflict extends far beyond the battlefield, leaving indelible marks on the minds and hearts of those who survive. Sledge's narrative is a vital piece of history, a voice from the past that continues to resonate with powerful truths about the human condition under extreme duress. It is a story that demands to be heard, to be remembered, so that we may never forget the sacrifices made and the lessons learned in the hellish crucible of places like Peleliu. His words are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, even when pushed to its absolute breaking point. They are a tribute to the old breed, the Marines who fought and died on that forgotten island, and a solemn reminder of the enduring scars of war. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you found this story impactful, please consider subscribing to Diary of World War II for more untold stories from history. And don't forget to like this video to help us share these important narratives with a wider audience. Your support helps us keep these memories alive.